Welcome back. It's exactly 1 month to the National Population Census, scheduled for May the 3rd to the 7th, and we're focusing on public enlightenment, what you need to know, what is going on at the National Population Commission, and how preparations are happening for that exercise. And we're being joined by Dr. Eyitayo Oyetunji, who's the Chairman, Public Affairs Committee, and the Federal Commissioner representing Oyo State at the National Population Commission. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you. So it's 1 month away. What are the preparations like right now?
Well, you use the word basic, and I think you're right. All the things that need to be in place are in place. Those things that are left to be done is mainly to train those who will do the work in the field. But in terms of preparations at our end and the office, all of that has been done. For example, we've successfully demarcated the entire country into units that will be covered during the census. That's what we call the enumeration area demarcation. That has been done successfully. And as you heard my chairman say, there are few places where we couldn't go to do the demarcation physically, but we have used some technology to do the demarcation. But mind you, that is not enumeration. We still hope to go into those places to physically enumerate the persons there. What we have done is to use a hybrid technology to demarcate those places, and they are just about 4% of that. In addition, we have successfully procured like 80% of the tablets that will be used to collect data in the field during enumeration. As I speak with you now, those tablets are being distributed nationwide. We are lucky and to have collaboration with the CBN. Those tablets are being distributed to be housed in the various CBN offices across the nation. We have done series of training up to this stage. So like I said, the only 2 levels of training are left for us to do. That's those who will actually go out and do what we call the building numbering and household listing, and subsequently those who will go and enumerate. So we're really good to go. Of course, we do have some public enlightenment and publicity activities to do to ensure that the public is fully aware of our activities and that the public is mobilized to be involved.
Okay, a couple of things you put down, but let's, in that report we played back there, your chairman was talking about the challenges that are being faced. 4 challenges, the 3 of them funding, and the 4th one security. I want to believe, is that the reason why your officials could not enter some of those areas you talked about for demarcation? What exactly were the reasons? And what's the guarantee that those challenges that stopped you from getting there to do demarcation will not still arise when the exercise begins?
First, we need to know the extent of those places we're talking about. They are just 4% of the country. Like the chairman mentioned, there's no local government that has not been demarcated, except Abadam in Borno State. Okay. Even Brindingwari that was hard to enter, we've been there successfully. So they're just pockets, small areas that we couldn't enter. And mainly it was for security purposes because it wasn't safe to go into those places. But they are very small areas. And like I said, what we now did was to use alternative technology to carve those areas for enumeration. We have assurances from the security agencies that during the actual enumeration will be assisted and to go into those areas.
You know, some will say 4% compared to 100% is infinitesimal, but then if we go by the standards or what we say that in census is nobody left behind.
You're right.
We're hoping that you'll be able to get into those places. But let's move on real quick. Some of the other things.
I must emphasize what you said. A census is not a census except everyone is counted. And that is our objective, to ensure that everyone is counted once and in the right place. So a census must have universality for it to be a census. Every part of the country must be covered. And that is our intention.
So this census now that's about to take place, do we need to travel?
How do you mean?
Do people need to move? I mean, people had to
certainly.
move for elections. So in this case, everyone, what's the plan for the populace?
Certainly, we don't encourage anyone to move to anywhere. The census essentially is to collect information for planning purposes. And to provide amenities, infrastructure, you need to have accurate information about the people in an area. So, we're living in Abuja now. Should I decide to go to Benin, how will they plan for me in Abuja where I live? So we should be where we are, because that's where they have to plan for us. That's where our children go to school. That's where we go to hospitals. That's where we use the highway. It's not back in the village or somewhere else. So we discourage that anyone should go anywhere at all during the census. We should be counted where we are. You remember I told you, our cardinal objective is to make sure everyone is counted once and in the right place. The right place is where you usually reside. Of course, we do understand that because of the challenges Nigeria has gone through in not too long, or we're still even going through, some people have had to relocate for security purposes, internal refugees. We do understand those categories of persons. And the kind of questions we have put into the census has been put there so that we can still track where their usual place of residence.
So how would you marry the two? I mean, if people, for instance, who lived in Borno State and because of the issue there, they've been moved to other parts of the country, how would you marry the data, as in where they used to live and where they are now?
Yeah, that's what I just said. We have follow-up questions to ask for your usual place of residence. How long have you been living here in Abuja? And there would now be follow-up questions. If you say you've been living here for 3 months, then we ask, where is your usual place of residence? My usual place of residence is in Borno State. Okay, how long have you been living in Borno State? Those follow-up questions will help us to establish where you usually reside. So we'll be able to aggregate that data for those places that people have had to move away from, because those people have been worried that we hope the census is not going to deprive us of the relevant data just because our people have moved. And that's why we have introduced those follow-up questions to ensure that even those areas are accounted for.
Dr. Yetunde, there are those who would have concerns, especially this census, at the timing of this census. It's coming almost as at the end of one administration and the start of another administration. Is the NPC not concerned that there might be issues of, say, misconceptions and mistrust as regards the data that will be collected at the end of the day?
Ordinarily, there shouldn't be. Ordinarily, a new administration requires data to plan, to succeed. To start, you need a blueprint. What people am I out to administer? Where are they? How many are they? What do they require? Ideally, that's what we should start with. But I agree with you that because of our circumstances, it's not too surprising that some people may want to read meanings. And that's why, number one, we ensured that we insulated the census processes from the electoral processes. That's why we had to wait until after the last elections, so just to ensure that nobody says that the plan is to use the outcome of the census to influence the outcome of the elections. The elections have been conducted and concluded, and then the census is coming. Beyond that is that historically, we found that often new administrations don't want to take the responsibility of doing a census immediately they come in. And we have come such a long way, and we're worried that if we don't complete the process under this administration, there might be issues of continuity when a new administration comes. This is against certain historical backgrounds of what Nigeria has gone through. We are supposed to have done a census in 2001, you recall. We did one in 1991, and the follow-up should have been in 2001. But because there was a change of administration in 1999, when the administration of former President Obasanjo came in, first the commission had to be recomposed. At the time he came in, there were 7 members of the commission, whereas the constitution he was operating upon required that there should be 37 members. He had to dissolve them, inaugurate a new one. I think he did that about 2000, which made it almost impossible to have a census in 2001. Almost the same thing happened again in 2016. We did a census in 2006. That, like I said, was delayed to 2006, mainly because of that change in administration. The same thing happened. We were supposed to do the census in 2016, but then, there was a transition in 2015. You see, President Jonathan, we had been meeting with him, working towards the next census, but like anyone would expect, he was equally concerned about the elections that will come up in 2015 before the year of census. And as it happened, he didn't win that election. The new administration came in. They had to grapple with economic issues, recession and all that, and the census could not have been their immediate priority. By the time they waited a while, COVID came in and so on. So we're worried, really, that if we don't tidy up and get this thing done, a new administration comes in and there will be other issues. We need to tackle security, we need to do this, and before you know it, the census will further be pushed back. And we're talking right now, we're 17 years behind. How long do we want to wait? That's why it's not because we're not mindful of the circumstances, but it's, as a matter of fact, because of the circumstances that we find ourselves that we're making every effort to ensure that we complete this process.
Okay, my colleagues have questions for you from Lagos. Go on, guys.
Thank you, Neta. Let me ask you, Dr. Oyetunji, and perhaps to emphasize the question Neta asked you a little while ago, as to whether or not people can and should or should not travel for this census. It is the practice of many that when they want to have elections, they travel. Even during the census of 2006, there are those who decided that they wanted to travel to their homes. But you said it's for planning. Just for the purpose of emphasis and understanding, perhaps of education as well. What's this planning for? So that people who have in mind to travel will understand that having the census where they are is more to their advantage where they are than traveling to their home state or wherever else.
Yes, I'm glad you're re-emphasizing this point. It's something we need to emphasize and to continue to enlighten Nigerians about. The census is not about how many we are, how many you are, we are more than you, and all of that. The census primarily is to give the basis that will help any administration to provide a better quality of life for the people. And to do that, a government requires information, not just about how many persons there are, but where they are, what are their needs, what is their present status. You cannot leave your usual place of residence and go to where you don't usually reside and expect that the kind of information that will be collected, even at that place, for you, will be relevant. In fact, this census we're doing, we have gone ahead to use technology in the demarcation exercise, such that we have all the buildings where people reside, and even those where people don't reside, already in our database. So the census is such that we want to meet you in the building where you usually reside. We're going to ask you questions, for example, about the quality of that building, about the infrastructure available to you in that building, about the amenities in that building. Now, when you leave your usual place of residence to go and get counted elsewhere, it defeats the entire purpose. So I'd like you to join us really in enlightening Nigerians. It is counterproductive to leave your place and go to your village. It won't help, because the appropriate development planning that should be made for you where you are will not then be made. And in your village where you don't reside, they will have a distorted figure and information about those who usually reside there. It is a very, very important question, and it is very important that Nigerians understand this and don't at all make any effort to think they want to go elsewhere. In fact, some people have suggested that it should be criminalized, but we don't want to think that way. But we just want to let people know the issues involved and why it is important that they stay where they are Like I just told your colleague, your children go to school where you are, you use water where you are, you go to hospitals where you are, you participate in the economic activity where you are, and all that is the information we want to collect during the census so that it can enable planning even by administrations.
Right, so in simple terms, do not travel. Census migration is a no-no. And yes, this is like the voter education of population census education. So that's one of the nuggets people need to hold on to. But I have some quick questions that need just short answers so Nigerians can better understand how to prepare for this. Because we just finished elections and we know how much preparation went into this. They had to register for their PVC, then identify their polling units, do this one, that one, and then went out to vote on a Saturday morning. The whole process, there was biometrics with the BVAS, they registered, they captured. I mean, you understand that whole process. But with the census, it's quite different. So how should Nigerians prepare themselves? What are the things we need to do? Clearly, there is no PVC. I imagine, I mean, you don't need to go out, as you have said. What do Nigerians need to do to prepare themselves? By the way, will there be a public holiday? You can answer that as well.
Well, essentially, we have done most of the preparations. What Nigerians need to do is to stay at home and answer the questions that will be put to them. Most of the preparations has been on our part. Unlike during elections, where you go to the electoral officers, so to speak, you go and meet them and get your votes counted. In our own case, we come to you where you reside in your house. The census is de facto. We actually enumerate only persons that we see. And except for people who are homeless or people who are on essential duties, we intend to enumerate persons in their usual place of residence at home. So all we need from Nigerians is that when we come to meet you at home, you give us answers to the questions that we shall ask, mainly questions that will help in development planning. All we need to do is to get Nigerians to be enlightened about the processes, some of the questions that will be asked, and to know what their responses will be. On our part, we are using the best technology available to us. As you are aware, this is an entirely digital census. We're not using papers, we're not writing on papers. We have bought and procured tablets, pads, if you like, which enumerators we use to collect information. And that information will be streamed real-time online to servers. So there's even no room for manipulation or from what the enumerators will enter. What was that second part of your question again?
Well, let me add more to it because of time. So I was asking if there will be a public holiday because you said you will not count people that are not seen.
Yes.
And it takes me to so there will be a public holiday.
We intend to approach government to request that people stay at home. A public holiday does not in itself guarantee that people stay at home. So we intend to request that people stay at home for certain part of that period. Like we have been announcing, the census is scheduled for 3rd May. And you know that 1st May is a public holiday already. So people should go back to work on Tuesday, to get money, get things done and all that. Then on the 3rd, if government approves, then people will stay at home from Wednesday to Friday. But Saturday normally is a no working day and Sunday as well. So that's the way we have scheduled it.
So quickly.
We don't want to make people stay at home for too long, but it is essential that for some part of those days, people stay at home so that the enumerators can meet them at home.
So quickly now, let's talk about the digital part of it. For the elections, there was voter accreditation process. So we were sure that, and that's how we could get over voting, because accredited voters must not be more than the actual votes cast, or rather, actual vote cast must not be more than accredited voters. But for this one, would there be biometrics used? Because we've heard cases that, people would just say, well, I have like 10 people in the house, but because of a culture or religion, you're not able to see them. So impute that. So my family is 11, including me. How would we guard against that? Also knowing that in some of those rural areas, some of your enumerators, might be under pressure to impute those figures. So is there a proper verification process, either with biometrics, such that there is a proper accreditation, so they won't be over-counting or over-voting, as the case may be?
We are not leveraging on biometrics in the way that it was done during elections. That is taking your pictures, capturing your fingerprints, but we have done a lot of work, like I said, in the enumeration area demarcation exercise. And what we did was to first do a census of all the buildings in Nigeria. As I speak with you, we have the information about every building in Nigeria, whether it's residential, whether it's non-residential. So before the enumerator goes out to the field, he's already going with information on the buildings that he's going to visit. That is buildings where the people he's going to enumerate actually reside. And these buildings you're going to see as pictures. They are pictures that have been taken from the satellite. So you're going to see the actual building where the people he's enumerating live. We expect that just looking at the building, you will not be able to look at a building and say there are 100 people here, when it's obvious that not up to that number of persons can live there. This is a population and housing census. The housing component collects information about the living condition of the household. You're going to have questions, for example, how many sleeping rooms are here? How many persons sleep in those rooms? What is this building made of? And so on. Those questions, yes, are intended primarily to collect information about the living condition of the household. But in addition, they also serve to checkmate, the possibility of people overcounting, so to speak. So those are the interventions we are put in place to ensure that it's going to be difficult for people, to begin to impute non-existent persons into the census process, because the check mechanism is such that it will be difficult. For example, we also have tracking devices on the tablets we are using. An enumerator cannot go and sit under a tree, for maybe a whole day and then come up with figures, because the tracking device that we have put on those tablets are such that it will be obvious that he was not moving from one building to another. In addition,
would they also indicate that you're at a building at every point in time? Is it that detailed?
Yes, in a way, indirectly. We have geofenced, the tablets. For example, if I'm to enumerate in this area, until I come to this area, the map for this area will not be downloaded. I must be where I should be before the buildings will be downloaded on my application. So you cannot now go elsewhere and begin to impute information and say, I'm there. No, we will track it and we'll know that you are not in the building where you should be.
Just to clarify, my colleague asked this question about people, old practices where they'll say, I have 10 people inside there, as you cannot see them. But what about those who would come and present a list to the enumerator and say, these are the number of people in my house, or in my community? Is that also being taken into cognizance?
No, that cannot work. We have so many questions to ask about each person.
And each person must answer those questions?
Yes. How old are you? Are you a male? Are you a female? For example, if you say you're 20 years old, you have to be careful about every other question. You cannot be 20 years old and have 7 children. You understand? Those things will not match. The questions are structured in such a way that when you begin to give conflicting answers, the questions will indicate so. There are several questions to be asked. So it's not about bringing a list and say, just write this number of lists. It doesn't work. And like I said, the technology we're using is that we can track many things. Don't forget that we had done an enumeration area demarcation. All those buildings had been visited by some other people.
You know, you've not exactly answered the question about, if I say, for instance, you come to my house, for instance, and I say I have 10 children in that room, you cannot enter there. What's going to happen?
No, I must see the 10 children. I must see each one of them.
The enumerators would insist on seeing the 10 children?
Yes, we're going with male and female enumerators. We're going to do a lot of enlightenment. It's not a matter of being forced to, although we would have a legislation towards that. But if you say they are women, we have female enumerators that will see them and ask them questions.
So the cultural issues have all been taken into cognizance in the planning of the census?
Yes. Because these things were experienced in the past. So we have made efforts to contain them this time around. I assure you that everyone that will be enumerated will be seen. And not just seen, where they live will also be indicated, such that you can visit that building any other time and have the same information verified. Those buildings are geo-referenced. They are there for you to see. You will see them as pictures. So you can always go back there. You can sit in the comfort of your room and tap that building and actually see the data that has been imputed for the building. That's the kind of census we're doing. I must say that for the first time, we're doing a census that is also geo-based. In the past, it's mostly demographic statistics. You're 10 years old, you're a male. But this time around, we're tying every of that information to a geographic location.
I'm 10 years old and I'm 5 years old living in Abuja.
Wait, not Abuja, living in this building.
In this building.
In this building that I can see. Okay. The building has a GPS location. And on our map, by the time we're done, you just tap that building and you will see that there are 6 households here, there's 1 household here, so these are the persons that are there.
You say we streamed live, so wherever I am, I can monitor.
By the time we finish, and it's now in the database, that's what I mean. The database will be such that it is a map.
Okay, hold on. My colleague Bukola has a question. Bukola?
Thank you, Nilta. The minister had said, days to the initial census date, which was rescheduled, that the commission had just about 60% of funding that it required for the exercise. And, even now, you are planning to recruit about 800,000 enumerators for this exercise. So with 60% of funding released, unless there's an update, how can you cater to the needs, the allowance needs and welfare needs of 800,000 enumerators for this exercise?
Well, we have all the information about what is required. And as the minister said, we have approached government, we have presented this to government, and that effort you saw was part of the effort to ensure that those funds are available. We have been given every assurance because if you had seen the data that was presented by the Honorable Minister for Budget, every level of expenditure has been accounted for and has been indicated. At this level, we shall do training for so number of days. These are the number of functionaries that will work, and this is the allowance that is payable to each one of them. And all that has been made available to government, and we have the assurance that the funds will be made available. Don't forget, at a time like this, the system of government is such that they don't want funds to be resting, in any particular agency when it is not yet ready to be utilized. So we have every assurance that as we move to every level, funds will be made available to us.
We're winding down here, so just this one question, and I like use technology. Now you're using technology, and there have been discrepancies. There have been issues with that technology. You talked about live streaming data and all of that. How are you going to merge this data? Are you working with NIMC to ensure that this data is put together, or the Data Protection Council Commission to see that all of these things, data is not messed up in any way? What's the guarantee that which you finish collecting, the information you collect from the different locations, is safe and transferable, and when it gets into that database, it will be secure? Are there any guarantees to this?
Yes, of course. National Population Commission is primarily a data collecting agency. We've been collecting data for years, and we know the importance of keeping information about persons safe. Like I told you, we don't release information like this is John and all of that. No, John is a statistic. When it comes to data, it's not about individual decisions. We're working with the Ministry of Communication, and all the protocols about data security, we have entered into that. Okay. And in terms of glitches here and there, we're working with all the service providers. We have mapped the various services that are available in different parts of the country, such that by the time our people go to the field, we know which network is strong where. If you come to our office, you see the map, you see what is strong elsewhere. But we have also made provision that where there is no service at all, the enumerator can collect data and store it in his pad and wait until it gets to... And that will not be compromised? No. Okay. He waits until he gets to where there is internet connectivity before he uploads.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Ita Oyetunji is the Chairman, Public Affairs Committee of the Nigerian National Population Commission, and he's also Federal Commissioner representing Oyo State. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
And that's it from the Abuja studio. Guys?
Well, it's just a good time for us to say, have a wonderful day, everyone, for the time that we've spent with you and that you have spent with us. Hope it has been worth your while. Have a wonderful week. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Oh, yes. From me here as well, let's make it a profitable one, right, in spite of all of the challenges. I'm Kaido Kikuli.
And just to add that we do not discountenance your meals. We acknowledge them. We'll promise to take your meals tomorrow.
And tweets, actually.
And tweets. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.